Sometimes it takes somebody from out of state that comes in here that's got a new way of doing things.
I'm glad you said that because that was the best. Here's the most humble I can be. So for any of you Texans who do get to watch this, my first 6 months here was the most humbling experience I've ever had in 40 years of bass fishing. On the West Coast, I was most definitely looked at as a Brian Duplessis or a Mark Pack. Of course, I had 40 years of romping and tromping.
Yeah.
Okay, from Arizona to...
You ain't that old, are you?
I'm almost 50. But
okay.
Here's a little about me. I've been fishing 100 days a year or more since I was 4 years old.
Yeah, I read you'd started a bass club early.
8 years old in my elementary school, I had started a bass club.
Yeah.
My dad says not addicted, afflicted.
Afflicted.
I was ditching. I would take I would take a collapsible fishing pole and put it in my locker so that I could ditch class by myself. I didn't convince any other kids to go with me. I wanted to fish and nothing but. But by the time I began to get in a career, for the last 30 years, I fished an average of 200 days or more a year.
Right.
In 2011, when I worked for the Hookup Outfitters, they documented me 314 days, 2,800 plus hours floating in the boat. I have that all documented. So I paid my dues and I've done it. So when I come here, that's my point of sharing that. I come here in my first 6 months, I'll tell you what, I had 12 guide trips in a row that zeroed. And every one of those people, I took the pay, but I gave them a comp. I gave them a comp. At 6 months, I called my father. And I said, Dad, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Oh. And I said, why is that? I said, Daddy, I can't catch a fish on this lake. He said, well, son, how are the other guys doing? I said, pretty well. I mean, it's a grind, it's fishing. Yeah. But I am lost. I said, maybe I didn't know what I thought I knew.
Right.
My father's a 90-year-old colonel. He said, son, how long did it take you to learn the West Coast? 40-year time. It took time, son.
Right.
Hang in there. So my second year wasn't a whole lot better than my first. My third began to come around. My fourth year is when I begin to kind of put two and two together as everyone else does on Fork. My fifth year is when the shell bed stuff finally clicked last year. And once that clicked, I'll say it two ways. I have not fished this year. I have fished exclusively 99.9% shell. Both shallow clam and deep mussel.
Yeah.
One day, my client said, let's go look at some bedfish. We looked at it for 45 minutes, and he said, let's go back to your shell bed.
Sure.
So since February 23rd, I've been fishing, in fairness, double echo. Whatever that double echo is,
right.
It should be shell.
Yeah.
Should be shell. Feels like shell every time. There is no rock in Lake Fork that goes ka-tunk, ka-tunk, ka-tunk. And even if there was, it's not going to scratch the paint off of my jig like the calcium does. So, but for whatever case, the most humble I can say is I am locating a double echo in specific areas. I'm marking that and putting the boat off of it, making a boat cursor position. So I have a boat position and a cast to position. And that is all that I've done for the last 4 months. And if you followed me, it's not the best of the best, but the statistics speak for themselves. And I can call it. And in the last 2 weeks with the post spawn, there have been a beginner yesterday, Misty, never used a bait caster before, caught a 22 3/4 inch big bass with me.
Oh, yeah.
On the cast I told her to make. That's a good feeling. It's a very confident feeling. It's a very rewarding feeling. So to go from my first year of I can't even catch these bass.
I couldn't hit one with a banjo.
Totally right. I mean, I almost felt like, look, there's an old joke that used to say, this old boy's catching fish left and right, no one else can. And you probably heard this, and I'll tell it in my version, but the game warden decides to come out and find out what this good old boy's doing. So the game warden comes out and says, hey, you catching a lot of fish. And the guy invites the game warden to come with him the next day. And they roll out to the spot, and he drops his anchor, and he fumbles around the bottom of the boat, and he takes out a stick of dynamite, lights it, tosses the dynamite, boom, the dynamite blows, and there's fish floating everywhere, and he grabs his net, starts netting the fish. And the warden says, what are you doing? You can't do that. And he turns around, looks at him and says, well, you going to fish or you going to argue? So I told him that as a joke, because my first couple of years, I felt like I could have thrown dynamite, nothing would have come up. And yet here I'm this incredible sonar guy that has found stripers in 100 feet in Pleasant. I've found fish in the ocean all the way to 1,500 feet. I'm a sonar guru, and I can't find these bass in Texas. I can't find these bass in Texas. It was awful my first 2 years. Any client, hopefully, that watches this, that remembers to fish with me, the difference from what I know today in just 6 years.
Probably some of those out there that remember those days. They got the comp, you know. And
there are. Some of them come back now. I've actually had 2 or 3 comps at old wrinkled up card. No expiration too. I put, I'm terribly sorry, but the next one's on me. The next one's on me, and no expiration. I had one the other day. The whole card was. I think the guy probably got home and crumbled the card up and said, "The heck with Michael," And so back to what you said. That was the blessing for my life. For I think God puts us all in a place at the right time. He put me over here. If he put me back 20 years ago, I'd still be caught up in the grass. I'd be caught up in everything else everybody learned about the lake. I didn't know any of that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't there to search for. Sure. It wasn't there to find. So I had to force to learn this new evolution. And that's the right word.
And that's what we're having to do.
That's right.
We're having to learn it. Well, now we're trying to catch up with you.
New evolution, and I feel grateful that I'm the one. I want to teach it. I want to open it. Yeah. I would say now when we go to Toledo Bend, they removed the grass. What did the fish do? Just re-evolved, probably using shell beds. Mm. Probably living in a home and visiting the shell bed for food. And that's the roundabout above it.
Well, I looked on your videos and stuff. It looked like basically bass and other fish species love a hard bottom.
Well, here's my theory. I've learned a lot in 6 years about Lake Fork, but I've heard nothing except from others about the 90s and the grass. 2090, or the 1990s. The lake in the 1990s.
Oh, the year 1990?
Yeah, all of the 90s and early 2000s. Everybody talks about a lake full of hydrilla.
I remember those.
Okay,
days, yeah.
And that was the most magnificent it could ever be.
Awesome. Yeah.
Now here's the deal. Grass grows bass. It's factual. I can't believe, I'm not going to say anything bad about Texas parks because they do the best job in the nation. By far ahead above them all. But what baffles me is when statistics like 2017 Toledo Bend, #1 lake in the nation. September 2017, they spray all the grass from end to end. Mm-hmm. 2018, it's the second last in the nation. Now, here's where I'm trying to get people to understand. Did all the fish, when the grass was gone in Toledo, die and disappear? No, sir. They re-evolved.
Right. You ever fished Martin Creek?
I have.
And do you remember, were you there the old days?
No, I've only been here 6 years.
Let me tell you something. Right. When we did Martin Creek, it had grass galore. And then they came back and they sprayed all that. So you know what happened then? You know what you had to do then? Then you had to fish it like a regular lake.
There you go.
And that's what you're getting to.
That's exactly what I'm getting to. So now here's my implication. If next month Texas Parks decided to bring all the grass back in Fork, the shell beds would have a lot less value. And here's why. The grass offers the same food source, plankton. Mm-hmm. The grass also offers oxygen. The grass also offers a home so they can live right in the kitchen. The grass is the kitchen. What a shell bed is offering the fish is a kitchen, like a coral reef to the ocean. The shell only thrives in an area that has good current movement, that's constantly bringing the plankton food. All fish, little babies, feed on plankton. So in essence, when I dial in, I've got a long point. It's all hard bottom. The whole area is hard bottom. And you can fish the whole area and catch fish in the whole area. But if you'll designate the little half a basketball court area, the double echo, and the shell area, that's like the reef in the ocean. And so when the tide comes in on the reef, the big fish come eat on the reef. So basically, a shell bed is offering a high food source area like a table, like a dinner table. Okay, as a bass fisherman, you're a plankton hunter.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Yeah.
Roy Hawk says it best. He says when he does his homework pre-fishing, he's looking for an active zone, an area that's alive, an area that contains life, small life.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Microorganisms, bacteria, planktons, zooplankton, phytoplankton.
This is along with that because the other species come in there. The reason the bass are there is not necessarily.
The bass don't live there.
No, they use it kind of like a.
They use it like
a flat.
No.
Wouldn't you say?
They use it like you and I use a China buffet.
Well, that's what a flat is. Some of the flats that are out there, and they'll come up and they'll bust those shads up on those flats out there. It's kind of the basic thing. They use it as a territorial thing. You know, they've got routes that are, you know, some of your areas that you've got in there.
It's so simple. It's bedroom and kitchen. 99% of the fish I catch, I locate a shell bed, and within 50 to 100 yards, there will be a full tree of some sort underwater that they live in, like a fish tank. You can hardly catch them out of those trees because that's the bedroom. Yeah. In the bedroom, you're triggering a territorial bite. In the shell bed, you're catching them on a feeding bite. So the fish leaves the trees, comes to the shell bed when it's ready to eat. And that's why fishing, focusing and staying in the shell bed is equal to putting a deer feeder and camping on the deer feeder. When the deer come to eat, you're going to get your deer opportunity. Right. So it's identical, and that's why I'm so success. Some of these shell beds, I've got to camp on them for an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours, waiting for the buff when they come. And now it's no-brainer fishing because I'm not trying to fool the fish anymore. I'm giving him food where he comes to eat.
Right, yeah.
And so it's bedroom, kitchen, kitchen.
It's opportunity what bass do. They're looking for an opportunity. They're looking for safety.
Correct.
They're looking for their regular routes that come through there.
Now the key is it has to be active. So just like a coral reef to the ocean, when the water is falling out, that coral reef goes to rest.
Right.
Okay. When the current comes in, the coral reef comes alive. All the little things begin to alive, and the big fish come to raid that.
Right.
So the wind and current is what would activate a shell bed. Now let me elaborate. So if I've got a long protrusion, okay, if I've got a north wind and I fish a south side shell bed, I'm not going to get bit because there'll be a shell bed on both sides.
Say that again.
So if I've got a long point that sticks out and I got a shell bed on the south exposure and I got a shell bed on the north exposure, and there's a north wind, and I fish the south exposure, I'm not going to catch nothing.
Okay.
Because there's no current in that south side.
Right.
The clams aren't filtering. Nothing's alive.
Right.
So the current is what activates. It's equal to tide in the ocean.
Sure. And you're getting flow of what you're getting.
Correct. And that's how
bait fish blowing up on it.
Correct. That's how I find, and not so much bait fish blowing up on it. The bait, I got a shell that the shell only thrives in a high plankton source. Okay, so if I've found a dense shell bed area, that means it's a high plankton source. Okay, the bait fish come to that to feed on that plankton.
So what does the wind have to do with the plankton itself? Is it blowing the plankton in there?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
It's moving the water.
So you're getting plankton blowing into this shell bed.
And most of these places will be like a saddle. So you got this long ridge or whatever it is, or a hump, and it's got a saddling part of it. That saddling is catching that current, and it's now compiling. It's actually doing it's what's the word I used to use? If the biologist went out, took a scoop of water, and said the average plankton is 10%. When the wind blows and piles it up into a corner, in that specific area, it may be more densified. We have a high source of plankton that's got...
So this is bringing the shad in, is that right?
Correct. It's bringing everything.
Now, do the bluegills, do they eat that plankton? I think they do, don't they? Yeah.
Baby species of all born, baby catfish, baby brim, baby stripers, baby white bass, baby largemouth, baby everything is born on phyto and zooplankton.
Right. And that's what bass love to eat.
That's right.
And that's kind of what I was saying here.
Crawfish eat plankton.
Sure.
So what these are is it's a table where I can guarantee that when the wind and current is right, I've got a high source of plankton. As a bass fisherman, I can't find anything better than that. That's no different than a wind-blown cove. Okay, how many times, or a wind-blown point, the waves are crashing. The waves are stirring the plankton. So everything is taking, like you said, opportunity advantage of this scenario.
So on those coves like that, I mean, do you have good luck in those coves? Is that?
I haven't fished any.
You don't fish coves then?
This will be the first year that at February 23rd, I pulled out of the Dale Pond. I fished the coves in the cold water. So I fished the backwater.
The cold water. Why cold water?
Winter. December.
Oh, in the winter. Okay.
Because they warm up fast.
Sure.
So if I'm in the main lake in December and it's 49 degrees, A nice sunny day, I can go in the very, very back of Dale and I might find it 10 degrees warmer because it's shallow water, it's skinny water, it warms up. So for December, January, some of February, I am in the backwater looking for the warmest water I can find. But by about the third week of February, I know those pre-stage females want to come eat.
Yeah. So you're not seeing shell beds, or you're not fishing shell beds. Is that correct in there?
In December, January, no.
Not really.
Not in the backwater.
So I mean, really, back to like the next topic to this thing. I think. Let me see if I can get it up. I think we talked about this some. What do they need? They need current, elevation, and exposure.
They need current for sure. Elevation-wise, we're going to have some ecologists help us on that.
Well, you don't want the silk. I mean, I was reading where you didn't want the silk getting in these.
It needs hard bottom.
Right, hard bottom with maybe a little bit of rise in it. Now, when we used to fish on the coast down there, where you've got flat bottoms down there all over, well, that's the only rise you had was all those oyster beds, that were back in there.
Sure. So I guess the answer to the elevation is yes. I need to have some kind of rising deal where that can catch that current.
At least a foot, maybe a rise.
Or more.
Yeah.
A lot of these
sure.
A lot of these is I'm putting the boat in 10 feet and I have an immediate break next to me. And that break will break all the way down into 25, 30 feet.
Yeah.
If that wind blows into that break, that wind blows into that break.
So wind's a pretty big part of this, is that correct?
It's a major part of it.
Yeah. So
it's
when you
such
look
a major part of it that when there's no wind, we ground.
So when you look at an area that you're going to fish, you look at the wind direction. What do you look for?
Every day. So I cannot tell you where I'm going to fish tomorrow because I have to wait to see what the wind is.
Uh-huh.
The minute I put the boat in the water, begin to idle out, I take a look. Okay, the wind's coming from this direction. I now look for any kind of escarpment.
What's an escarpment?
Escarpment is basically
I'm sorry, I'm a dummy.
A long underwater point.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. Anything we just talked about that has a catch.
Right. That whole
correct. We talked about elevation. We talked about elevation. So I've got a long, funny point that goes out. Well, if the wind's blowing, the elevation of that long point is going to catch the current. It's going to stop the current.
Right.
It's going to allow the plankton to concentrate.
Otherwise, it'd blow on through.
It'd blow on through. Yeah. That's what creates the concentration of plankton, which feeds the shells, which feeds everything amongst it.
Yeah.
When I was in kindergarten, this is the one thing I remember. The teacher taught us about a little tiny fish that ate a bigger fish, that ate a bigger fish, that ate a bigger fish, and then along comes the biggest shark. The chain of commands. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
We are following a scientific theory of plankton first. Find the highest source of plankton I can find, where the little fish come to feed, where the big fish come to raid them.
Right. So when you're looking for areas to fish, for shell beds, is there something in particular you're looking for? Because I would imagine there's shell beds that are better than others.
And that's a great question. There are, first of all, shell everywhere. Okay.
Sure, yeah. The little bitty ones like you talked about.
Well, even the big ones. Billy has found some all the way up in Running Creek.
Billy Lawson,
yes.
He's coming out. Yeah.
He's found some all the way up in the creek in 4 or 6 feet of water.
Mm-hmm.
But is it a bed of them? No. Mm-hmm. I have fished Lake Mary in Flagstaff, Arizona, and every now and then one of those will close down on your line and bring it in a line.
We had that on the coast. You'd be throwing like a spoon, and you'd hook. I was going I caught a shell,
But Lake Mary has no beds. Okay, we don't get a consistent enough current. Now Fort, we have a blessing. We get wind.
It gets a lot of current.
It gets a lot of movement, and so that's helping some of these areas. I'm finding them everywhere. The looking for the hard bottom first. You do want to find that hard bottom area because within the hard bottom area, most likely will be shell beds. I have found them as small as a kitchen table. I've found them as big as half a basketball court. I have 2 shell beds that are probably half a football field, and they're extremely densified.
Right.
But they're in an area that almost has some kind of movement every day.
All the time.
All the time.
So, that's why they're so good.
So here's the best ones, and this will make sense. If I've got a point that sticks out, north and south. North wind blows, it's going to be the northern exposure. South wind blows, it's going to be the southern exposure. But if I've got a ridge that runs north and south, all right, and that wind clips in and catches, I get current along that ridge from whenever way, that's an active shell bed, and it'll be even bigger.
So that's even better when that is.
And that's what I'm just learning now on Fort, because if I can line up ones where current, find something through the navionics look and study that structure of the bottom. And after a while, you'll start to recognize, all right, that water's moving. I see that pocket there that changes. Like you said, the elevation change there. That's going to deflect a lot of that current. That means it can collect plankton. That's the wheels that you got to have turning. Is think about plankton. Don't think about bass. Think about concentrated plankton. Where would it build and why would it build there? And usually when you do that, it's going to lead you right to the shell beds.
Okay. So you're looking for hard bottoms with your graph. That's basically how you're finding those bottoms.
Correct.
You're looking for good water flow. And you're looking for areas with actually some structure to it, obviously.
Some kind of, I'd call it an escarpment. Guys will call it here a hump or a ridge or a long point. Anything submerged structure-wise, not tree-wise, but hard bottom structure-wise, somewhere in amongst that throughout the whole lake.
And you're actually verifying it by dragging a bottom bait down there and actually feeling the bait.
Here's a great little quick story on Thursday.
And that's where you get this right here.
When you drag over through this, when that jig comes over these, if it's just one, you can't tell. We get into a bed of these, and it's literally ka-thunk, 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 ka-thunk. It's undeniable. This is like glass, so it also wears off the paint. You can tell when you look at the jig.
It's not real good on your line either, you know. So,
So Thursday, I had a great day catching fish through shell beds. We got down to about the last 45 minutes, and we were I'd run out of stuff to show them for that day. And the guy said, well, we could go in 45 minutes early. And I said, sure. If you don't mind, let's do that. I could use a little break before my evening trip. So I'm running into Pokes. And on my Navionics, all of a sudden I saw another little protrusion. I call it an escarpment. You can't miss them on your Navionics.
This is in Mustang Creek.
Yes, Mustang Creek. And I see,
this is on the east or north or south?
North side. So let's start with Mustang Point. You got Mustang Point and road.
Let's just pull it up here. I got it right here.
It's ideal. And we can use this as an example. I'll even at this point give this spot. I don't mind giving the spots away. So zoom on in there. And this is just great testimony here that I'm sharing.
The video you just viewed is part 1 of episode 27. In part 2, Mike shows us an exact location of a shell bed and goes into greater detail about just how to fish that spot. Now Mike talks about how he fishes shell beds for pre-spawn versus the post-spawn, and he also talks about the advantages of both. Now part 2 will only be available for members of lakeforkmaps.com. You can sign up with lakeforkmaps.com and gain full access to all the videos and everything else that we have on that site. Just go to https://www.lakeforkmaps.com.